the singular honor and pleasure to welcome on stage a friend. Please welcome to the stage the founder of eCampus, Cecil Nutako.
Okay, so academia, industry, right? Naturally, these guys are supposed to be husband and wife, so we can give birth to innovations, development, right? It's a no-brainer, right? You get married and see if it's that smooth. Marriages are not supposed to be that smooth. They can be very terrible. And that's what's happening. So academia, nice. Oh, industry, yeah, they got married. They gave birth to nice technologies like the internet, medicine, so many things, right? But when they fight, we suffer. Everybody. I wonder how many times the word GDP is mentioned a day globally. Yeah, you can imagine. So GDP, according to, those who coined it, right, is the total monetary or market value of all the finished goods and services produced within a country's borders in a specific time period. Right? And you need human beings to produce these things, right? You need talent to produce these things. So academia is supposed to help produce this talent, and then they graduate into industry and they produce these products and services so we can have a higher GDP than others can respect us, right? That's very serious. And they are fighting. So it's a big problem, right? So in the last 10 years, right, the United States has maintained they're the biggest. So they contribute 15.16% of global GDP. Now China produce or contributes 9.8% of global GDP. So you see where it's going. Now Africa, right, think of the size, right? Africa contributes 2.4% of global GDP. Africa, I'm not saying Ghana. Africa, we contribute 2.4% of global GDP. China is doing 9.8. The United States is doing 15.16. Now this will get very interesting. South Korea, look at it in size compared to Africa. You see, South Korea, right? You can Google where it is on the map. I can picture it right there. So South Korea contributes 2.6% to global GDP. The whole Africa is in 2.4. South Korea, 2.6% of global GDP. What it means is that the whole of Africa, all our universities, our polytechnics, every talent development factory we have produces brains that work with our industries, and the products and services we produce is only 2.4% of the whole world's. Come on. And we are the largest in population. We have the youthful population, the promised land. 2.4%? Like, really? Come on. All right. So that's fine. I have some brains here. They also produce in these factories. They're going to come up here, and we're going to find out how we can move this 2.4 to maybe 20% or 30% within the next foreseeable future. Because other than that, I'll probably migrate to South Korea. Yeah, so I can feel good about my GDP, All right. So to join me, try and figure out this gigantic task, right? I have people in what? Academia, government, private sector, who will be coming up here to help us. So let's start with Femi.
Okay, I'm Femi Adewumi. I'm responsible for the training program at MEST. MEST is a social responsibility program of the Meltwater Organization in the US. And at MEST, we take roughly 50 to 60 trainees every year and then take them through entrepreneurial training in business, technology, and communications. And at the end of the period, they form teams and go through a mentoring a period of 3 months where they're prepared for seed state funding. And at the end of this period, they pitch for funding. And those that win funding move into the incubator, where they have roughly about 16 months runway to bring their businesses to the market. They are also supported by our venture partners and the incubator. And over the past 11 years, MEST has graduated about 70 companies into Africa, Ghana, and different countries of Africa. We take students from all over Africa. This year, we have students from 14 countries in Africa. And last year, we graduated 11 out of the 13 startups that were formed, each one of them getting about $100,000 each. Some of the names from MEST I'm sure you're familiar with. Names like Complete Farmer, like Mekasa, I'm sure you're familiar, Invoice here. And I'm happy to be part of MEST. I think we have some answers to moving up the notch in the GDP. Thank you.
It looks like your factory is working.
Yes,
How you can mention products. We'll see how that moves the GDP up. The only boss woman. Tell me what you do.
Hello?
Yeah, that should
Okay.
work, yeah.
So firstly, I'd just like to say thanks for having me on this panel with my esteemed guest. I'm so humbled to be here with, great minds like Mest, and I do some work for Chessie, so I'm familiar with what they do. So yeah, thank you, Akosia. My name is Lexia Usubuahne. I'm an HR recruitment consultant by profession. I'm the managing director for a company called LX HR Solutions, where we provide HR strategy, policy for companies, and then we also provide training solutions, and then of course talent acquisition, which is what Cecile mentioned as I walked on stage. Essentially, we work with both public and private entities. So we've worked with everyone from like agility, logistics to Uber, and also in the public sector, we've worked with the YEA in developing their new initiative, which was the Job Center, as well as providing training in some of the ministries and consultancy services. So that's it in a nutshell. And I look forward to having a conversation.
Yeah, that's quite a big nutshell. Big man, you are representing the president too, so you are telling us everything. So let's know what you do, because we have an idea what GES is about, but you are with the statistics department. So tell us a bit about what you do at the statistics department, and also remind us of the whole GES, their responsibility in this whole, space of academia, industry, in the context of this panel. So your introduction is going to be 2 in 1. You get it?
Yeah, hello, thank you. I'm Uso Japan from Madenta Municipal Education Office. I'm not the statistics officer over there. Basically, what we do at our end is education statistics. Now, when we talk about enrollment of pupils, we look for number of teachers in the various schools. And then we also talk about education indicators. If I say education indicator, we are talking about the GER, gross enrollment rate. We talk about the pupil-teacher ratio concept. And then we also look at teacher attrition rate, and then other issues that concern education. So a lot of people come to our office, those who are undergraduates, who are doing their masters or whatever, they come, and then if they need data on enrollment or any other thing concerning education, we're able to give those things to them. So basically, that's what we do at the statistics of unit as education statistics.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Do you have statistics on how many end up being employed?
In our sector or outside?
Yes, so because in your department,
Yeah.
you track enrollment, you track completion, you track teachers, number. So do you also track from enrollment to a desk in an office employed? Do you track, or once they graduate, is done, your job is done, you don't follow up to see whether they actually get employed?
Yeah, no, we don't do that.
Okay, we'll create one field in your Excel sheet.
Yes.
Track whether they are employed. Next year, I'll look for you, I'll ask you, track whether they're employed. Because you can't just leave them like that.
That is what we do. That's like if you talk about our office staff, those who are being recruited into our system, the GS, in our office per se, that one we can give it out to you. That's what I know, but not outside our
Of
end.
your office.
Because if you look at GS in the whole...
General, yeah.
Yeah, maybe what is prevailing in other districts may not be the same thing in my district when it comes to like recruitment of officers into various positions. I may not be able to give you that one, but I can give you the one in my office, per se.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Doc.
As a boss.
Yeah.
Long time. All right. I also want to say thank you to Akosua and the team for continuing to invite us. It's always great to come to Tech in Ghana, and it's great to be able to sit with wonderful people like this as well, and yourself.
I'm not wonderful, don't worry.
So I represent Ashesi University, a small liberal arts college here in Ghana. Our mission is to educate ethical entrepreneurial leaders with concern for others and the courage to transform the continent. We have 1 in 4 of our students is from another African country, courtesy MasterCard Foundation. We have 4 majors, so engineering, computer science, business, admin, and MIS. As a liberal arts college, the typical liberal arts college in the West will have courses like history of Western civilization or Latin or something like that. But we substitute that with, what we deem as contextually relevant courses. So, for instance, entrepreneurship and Python and calculus and leadership and so forth. So basically, our students come in the first year and they can take a bunch of different courses before they go into their majors. So it's very different from what you find in other schools. We have, because our mission has the word entrepreneurship in it, we are always, thinking about how we improve on training of these young people so that they can actually become entrepreneurial. Not necessarily entrepreneurs, but entrepreneurial when they join companies. So, for instance, we have a 1-year entrepreneurship course that is mandatory, compulsory for every student. So even if you're coming in for engineering or computer science, you have to take this 1-year entrepreneurship course. The front end is design thinking, basically focus on problems. We really try to have them think about problem solving, because for us, if you can focus on problems and not jump to solutions, then if whatever idea you have doesn't work, you can quickly pivot and still be focused on the problem, right? So design sprints in the first semester, and then business simulations. We give them small amounts of money to actually run an operation on whatever they develop in the first semester. So in many ways, we think of it as giving them an entrepreneurial lens that they can use for the rest of their time on campus. And so through this experience, we try to simulate industry quite a bit. So we do a lot of group team work in our courses, where the students very early on learn to deal with other humans in problem solving and in working on projects. And then we also focus a lot on logic. So critical thinking is extremely important. We break down the different logic streams, if you will. We focus on deductive logic, inductive logic, and the new one we added, abductive logic. So basically, we break down their logic and reform it, because we are in the business of skill set and mindset. So it's not enough to teach them skills. It's also important to help them retune their mindset around how industry works, around how the world works. So our students, we have a 98% placement rate, I think. And what we hear from industry is that your students think differently, right?
Okay.
And it's because we pay a lot of attention not only on the skill set, but also on the mindset, and help them when they face a problem, they just take a step back and look at it from a different perspective.
98%.
Yes, that's.
So,
it might be higher, but yeah, I think it's something like that.
hear this guy well. 98% of every student that graduates from Ashesi has a job. Yeah, it's a small school, but that's impressive. 98%. So if you want a job, just go to Ashesi. Like, this equation, done. Whoa, that's a lot of work. And so from what you're saying, the difference here, based on the feedback you're getting from industry, is that they think different.
Right.
They think different. Because you pause it there.
Yeah.
It's enough PR for
Okay.
Ashesi, enough. So they think different. That's quite interesting. Think. So it's a mindset thing.
Right.
All right, so that brings me to Lexi. You find people for companies, and you advise companies on which kind of people they need or they should hire. So if I'm going to get a job, it's like you're the gatekeeper. All right?
I was literally going to Add that I'm going to take credit for some of the 98%.
Oh, you did that.
I placed some HSE university students. We have a partnership.
Now tell me, what do you tell companies to look out for? What are they telling you they're looking out for? So we all know that, look, if I'm going to get a job in the 21st century or going forward, I need to find a school that can give me this stuff. At least we got one. We need to change the way we think.
For sure.
So tell me more.
So I think it's a number of things. Companies tend to come to us because, first of all, they want people that are diverse and they have some extent of exposure. So in my notes, when I was taking notes, I was to I guess school leaders that it's important to expose your students and your children to as much as you possibly can, from both travel to different reading a variety of literature and participating in a variety of activities, because we tend to think that academics are everything. So we tend to harness on that, and I'm probably speaking to myself when I say this. But yeah, it's important that you think differently, and you diversify your thoughts, and you must be inquisitive, because you must want to know and seek and find out how things work and why they work a certain way. So companies tend to come to me because they know that they're going to find people that have either international experience or international educational experience, which is just unfortunate, because that's just the sort of talents that come through our server. So they come with a need in the department, or a need of a skill, or what have you. So my advice is definitely skills are key. But again, we focus so much on technical stuff that we forget our soft skills. So people also want you to, companies also want you to come in being able to communicate with other team members. They want you to come in and adapt to their team culture. They want you to come in and be able to think outside the box, and not be so reliant on your manager or your line manager or what have you. So these are some of the things that that they expect.
So far, all the things you've mentioned, I've been to school for a while. Nobody taught me how to be independent in school. There is no course on how to be independent. Communication, we're taught communication, and they told us you do PowerPoint presentations to communicate. Nice one. I like that. PowerPoint is great. But as in listening skills, it's not on any other curriculum. Another thing you mentioned is what? Diversity, right? I think through school I was told to rather focus. Focus, right? But here you say people want people who are all over the place, diverse, very exposed, get new things. But here I'm being trained by students, focus, like that, right? So clearly I'm not going to make it through your channels, right? Then another thing, inquisitive, man, you go get bitten for that. Inquisitive? You hear the inquisitive kills the cat. Have you heard that before? You're telling me to get a job through you, I need to be inquisitive. Man, I'm going to get bitten with the cane.
Yeah, so I guess our system, and I guess
Mr.
Statistical Officer can perhaps, but our educational system isn't necessarily the best. We have a long way to go, and we've come a long way in that you see that they've infused a lot more technology. You see that they've infused a lot more creative ways of learning. So you're not just writing from a board now. You're expected to have a laptop or go online and do some research. So that's important, but there's so much more we need to do, from field work to doing things, in groups and in teams, and asking questions, So.
All right. Now, big man, you just heard it, right? You said you guys are doing very well. We've come very far. Now we do things differently, right? Now, from your department, do you have any mechanism to measure some of these things that she's talking about, even at that early stage? Because I know GES, do you have direct influence over tertiary education? Do you have that?
No.
That's from the accreditation board, right?
Yes.
They have, because the universities are like Oga on their own. We'll come to that. So you are even well positioned to start changing the way we think from the primary, junior high, senior high school level, right? That's the prime. So is there a way, even within GES, how flexible is it that some of these things that have been mentioned here, diversity, more exposure, the attitude of inquisitiveness, soft skills like writing simple memos, writing, how to communicate, how to ask questions, how to find out things, critical thinking, how to be independent, how to collaborate. In your statistical work, is there a way that we can start measuring some of these things as you're baking these kids along the line?
Okay, thank you so much. I think I'll talk about the new curriculum that has been developed recently by GES. I think that's where we can get those things. Now, with the new curriculum, I learned, for now, what we are doing is that there is no failure. We don't have a particular child who says he's a failure, because everyone is unique in his or her own way. So now the curriculum is giving us the chance for children to ask questions. Teachers are no more teaching us previously, but they are now facilitating. So children will be given the chance to do things on their own. They do their own research. Even currently, most of their homeworks and assignments that have been given them, they have been asked to go home and then do their own research on the net. So this will give them more time to look up for other things, so that teachers can be questioned on why these things happen. And then teachers will not only be doing spoon-fed sort of work. So basically, that's what the new curriculum is talking about, so that we can get all those things that this lady is talking about, diversity and all this, in that, where children will have that sort of critical thinking, problem solvers, and any other thing that can help us to develop this nation.
Fantastic. So that's great to know that now we have a framework that is going to inculcate some of these skills into the next generation.
Yes, please.
My real question to you now is, I want to be able to measure that. Yeah, you've done a great curriculum. Exciting. Yeah, everybody says, I'm even more excited about it. But I want to measure stuff. I want to be able to know that the curriculum went live on maybe 1st November. Mm-hmm. So on the 30th of June, I want to know. I want to measure statistics. I want to measure how many people went through it. How many of them have improved in their communication skills? How many of them are able to think critically? Do you have, now that they've done the curriculum, has your department, at the statistics department, have you created any tool to measure these things? Or you are yet to do it?
No.
Because
let me just finish here. The issue is that NACA,
what's that?
that's National Assessment, Council for Assessment and National Council for Assessment and Curriculum is NACA.
NACA.
Yeah. And then the NACA came out with this curriculum. And then what they initially introduced was only the curriculum, but they are yet to do with assessment.
Okay.
So, yeah.
How to measure.
How to measure.
Okay.
How to measure.
So that's a good question.
Yeah.
So they are yet to
measure.
Measure.
Yeah.
Great curriculum. They've already started rolling it out. They are yet to measure. All right. We'll find out when they start measuring, because they've already rolled it out.
Yeah, so now they've asked the basic schools, especially the primary, not to write exams this very year, this academic year.
So we'll be glad to follow up on this.
Yes.
Akosia, we need to follow up on how to measure. It's very important.
Yes.
Now that takes me to Femi. So you guys must, I don't know whether you are a school, you are a university, you are a company, you guys are so unique, right? At least I shall say we know they are a school, you see? But you guys, you are very unique. How do you go about curriculum? Do you have something like that? You get where I'm coming from?
Yes.
Because these guys have nice one, they are yet to measure. Fine. I want to know what do you do with curriculum?
Okay, at MEST, the first thing we do is we look at the outcome we plan to bring out. This year we started what we called outcome-based learning, experiential-based learning. So we know we want to produce people who are strong individuals, who can stand on their own and work effectively in teams. We know we want to produce people who are not necessarily the best tech people, because it's a tech company, not necessarily that everybody has to be technical, but who also understand technology basics. We also want technology people who understand business and communications. So these outputs or outcomes drive the curriculum. So we basically have our three streams, communications, business, and technology. And we feed these outcomes we're looking for into building the curriculums for this. We also now apply Agile in our curriculum building. For example, this year, even though we have the entire curriculum for the next year, for the whole year, we refined it in trimester periods. So we've completed one trimester now. We're now working on the syllabus for the next trimester. And we're going to bring in things that we did not think about before, based on what we have now seen and trends that we have seen in the industry, to reinforce what's going to go into the next trimester, to ensure that we get the outcomes that we're looking for. So this is the approach.
So that's quite entrepreneurial in its nature, right? Now, I'm beginning to sense, is it that size is your advantage? The fact that you guys are a bit smaller compared to the empires of University of Ghana and, Cape Coast and KNUST. Is it, Doc, because you are, I'm not getting it. Is it that the bigger they become, then they just lose track of some of these innovative ways? Because I speak to professors, lecturers at Legon and Tech, and these guys are smart guys. They're way, way smarter than me. I'm like, so why is it not translating in how you run your organizations? Is size an advantage and a disadvantage? What do you think could help scale these kind of models at an empire? I'm saying an empire because those guys are like ivory towers, right? An empire like Legon, how can that work? So, Prof, tell me about that.
Right. So size definitely it makes it easier, right?
Okay, so that's an advantage.
We have small classes of a maximum of 60, and when our classroom shapes, the seating arrangement is normally that of a horseshoe shape. So the facilitator is in the middle, and making sure that there is discussion of content that students have looked at before coming into class. So we don't do lecturing, right? We do facilitation, right? Which is important, because what it means is that every student comes in ready to contribute to the conversation, and is not going to be sitting there because somebody's going to be standing there talking for 90 minutes, right? If you have 200 students in a class,
that becomes difficult.
That becomes a little tricky. It doesn't mean that there are no creative ways of doing small group things in large classes, right? I was at a conference and there were faculty from schools in the US and Australia, which like empires, what you're describing.
Yeah, empire schools.
Their intake is in the thousands, and yet they are able to do entrepreneurship boot camps, in the numbers. Because when you think about it, we do have programs where we have high levels of facilitation, with hundreds of people, right? We do that. So if we can take a program perspective to entrepreneurship in a large school, it's still possible. I think at Legon, in fact, we were talking to some guys, and they were trying to do this with 300 students who were taking an entrepreneurship class, and it was supposed to be a workshop style with maybe like 10 people on the table and so forth. It's not impossible. So I think a lot of it comes down to will, right?
So leadership.
And to leadership. The faculty and facilitators ready to step up and, sort of confront the issue and get creative, and be able and engage students at that level, right? So that they're not just receivers of knowledge, but they actually participate and contribute to the knowledge creation.
So at least there is hope. That means it's doable.
Yeah.
It is doable.
Some empire schools elsewhere, you want to contribute?
Yeah, so I just wanted to contribute to that. So everyone has a different way of learning, right? And I feel like schools like Ashesi take that into consideration. So everything from how things are presented, how things are seen, how things are felt. These are all ways in which we learn through our senses. So they take those things into consideration. Unfortunately for us, our universities here in Ghana don't apply the same, I guess, to use the word again, diverse way of nurturing students. And then also you tend to find like students that are probably perhaps disruptive in class, or seem or come across as though they're not learning or they're not understanding what is being taught, just because we haven't identified the way in
they
which
wanna absorb the
that we-
knowledge.
Precisely.
Okay,
So these are some of the factors as well.
So,
Can I
yeah, why
quickly,
not?
yeah, I just want to quickly note that we think a lot about our teaching or our facilitation as simulations of industry,
Okay.
right? So what happens in industry? And we keep telling them all the time, when in the first year, they'll complain about something, we'll say, in industry, this is how it works,
Okay.
right? What we're doing is we're training you to be successful in industry, so why don't we start in first year?
Okay.
Right? And so we keep reinforcing that and making sure, and most faculty have some level of industry experience. So they bring that into the classroom and we simulate it. So we're always thinking of how do we simulate an industry situation in the course that we're teaching at various levels with the different topics that we have for the semester.
Okay. So that takes me to the next phase, because it looks like we've dived into the academia part. Now we know what some people are doing differently within academia and they're able to get some of the results, right? Now, the marriage between academia and industry, right? Like I said before, it seems like it should be the case, right? After all, it's my taxpayers' money that runs most of these universities indirectly, especially the public ones. So if I'm paying 25% corporate tax, and then you can't produce people that come help me to continue paying corporate 25%, I have a responsibility to step in and say, oh, how can I help? Because I need this kind of people in the next 2-3 years. How can I help so that at least my tax comes back to me through human resource? No brainer, right? But it looks like there is something not really making it gel. From some research I've done, they seem to center this around culture. It looks like academia has a whole different culture, or let me put it this way, traditional academia, because I don't think Ashasi is like a traditional academia, because these guys have done a lot of things differently. MEX, you don't look like you're a traditional academia, right? Ghana Education Service is more like a regulator or facilitator. So I wish we had someone from Lagos, but next year we'll grab them, right? So in that traditional academia, they have a certain culture, right? And you've taught in different schools. I've reacted with them. They have a certain mindset, and to some extreme, they even believe industry has nothing to offer them. To the extreme, they have that. And industry also has its own culture, right? They are more inquisitive, they are more research-driven, result-oriented. It's not about whether you got A or B, it's about did you work? And academia is about, okay, how many papers did you write? Did you get A or B? Your GPA. So these two cultures are clashing, right? In just 1 minute, what can we do to take that barrier out? They can't all have the same culture. We respect both cultures because diversity helps us. But how do we fuse these two cultures seamlessly so we can make progress? So let me start with MEST. How do we fix that?
Okay, the first thing is that MEST is actually not an academic institution.
Of course.
We are the bridge between academia and the industry. You have schools like Ashesi that are more integrated into what MEST is doing, so closer to the industry, but you have the traditional academia that are still 100% academia. I think what has happened in academia is, in my parents' time, by the time you're finishing your degree, your job is waiting for you. But the industry or the world has evolved, but academia in this region has not evolved with the industry, and that's a problem. So there's a big mismatch. What I see a lot of industry organizations doing now, that problem is also there actually in the advanced world. What I see a lot of companies, organizations doing now is bringing programs to help people who are going through the academic process to actually learn those skills that they need to learn that will make them useful when they come out into the industry. For example, I see Microsoft, I see IBM, I see Google rolling out online programs like Digital Nation Africa, where people can go and learn practical skills, technology skills, design thinking, AI, blockchain, so that by the time you graduate, you have those skills that will make you employable, that will make you useful. You don't even need a job if you don't want. You can start a business by your own, developing something around what you've learned. This, I think, is what we need to promote.
So Lexi, how do we fuse that? Because you seem to be on the industry side more. What needs to be done?
So I feel
to
like
fuse this?
we need to strengthen our careers guidance.
What?
Our careers guidances.
Okay.
I feel like how many of you in the audience went to school locally? Like your Legons and your KNUSD. Okay. And how many of you guys used your career services?
Career guidance.
Yes,
department.
career guidance.
I don't go
One
there.
person, two.
I
okay.
never went there.
So my point exactly. I think that's something that we need to really work on and harness to make it stronger. So by providing them with all the necessary, resources they need, as well as even training the guides themselves. That's one thing. How many of you has also heard of like something called the continuous professional development? Anyone heard of that? So I think it's important that we create even those tools so that, yes, when you finish university, you've managed to do X, Y, and Z, you've ticked that off. But what do you need to do in between? So is it an extra course you need to do? Do you need to go and do things like CV writing? Do you need to go and do something like interview skills? Because, I see a lot of people applying for my jobs. We see hundreds of CVs a day, and they come, and because of the chew and pour notion, they're able to say all the right things, but you put them in a work situation, and it spirals down from there, and that's partly because of how again we're taught, but also that people don't take their own initiative and say, okay, maybe I should go and do an online course. Maybe I'm applying for this particular job, so I should brush up on this or that, because there's so many free courses that are available from Coursera to Allison. So yeah, I think it's important that, was that the last point? Yeah, so I think, and of course, in terms of industry, I have a case study. So Fidelity Bank has a graduate program. So you literally go in, and once you finish graduate, you're selected, there's a whole process, and you get to work with various departments. And that alone enhances your skills to prepare you for, and also it gives you a notion of, okay, perhaps I don't really like accounting, even though I got an accounting degree. Perhaps I want to work in, IT because I've got a particular type of skills and I want to harness that. So I think these are all important key points.
That's interesting. Fidelity has a graduate program.
Yes, a graduate. And I feel like every company should have it.
I want to know more about that.
Yeah,
And let's see
for
how
sure.
every company can have a
Yeah,
graduate program. That would be
precisely.
very good. The career development centers could then work with these graduate programs.
Precisely.
And then do the continuous professional
Yeah,
development.
exactly.
Oh man, it's like free consultancy, right? That's nice. I like that. All right.
I'll
so-
be invoicing Akosia after this. So.
No, bring the invoice to me. I'll take it. Because that's on me, right? Don't worry. Just 2 CDs, so no problem. So, GS, right? What do you think, from your perspective, right, can be done to fuse that marriage?
Okay, thank you so much. When you look at the academia and the industry, there are two different worlds, and they all operate in a different pedestal. They have different ideas. Now, if you want to marry the two, like bridging the gap between the academia and that of the tech industry, I think the first thing we need to do is our curriculum is so rigid, it needs to be flexible. Now, if you take what my sister said, like when you go to some of the universities, excuse me to say, some of the courses that are being done over there, they are only there, those courses are there just to eradicate ignorance, if I should say so. So this time around, that's why the new curriculum has been made, so that at least each child, where the child's interest is, teachers have been trained to tap interest of children. So where the child interest is, that's where the way to start. So at the end of it all, we have a global citizen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So
flexibility,
is key.
yeah, flexibility
I like that.
is
I
very
like
important.
that.
Yeah.
So if we can start seeing that flexibility in your policies and stuff, hopefully things will change. I like that. Doc, then we can go to the audience. So
Right.
those of you who have questions, start preparing them. After Doc, I'm coming for
Yeah.
2 questions.
Yeah, so I think Femi hinted on this. The fact is, academia will always lag behind industry, right? So what you see is that, for instance, you see the IBMs and the Microsofts starting to train people in AI and data science because the universities are too slow, right? It takes a long time to introduce a new course or replace courses on a curriculum, right? It's a long process. Then you need to find the people who can teach it and all of that. So it takes a while. And I think what academia should be doing is tracking how industry is evolving, the new courses that are being introduced. Yes, you can take a lot of these courses online, but a lot of times the fundamentals are not there, right? So you need strong fundamentals to be able to layer, a short course on top of that. So I think the marriage becomes effective when academia does a better job in responding quickly to what's happening in industry. I mean, even at Ashesi, we're hearing about soft skills and presentation skills and all of that. So we're starting to ask the question, how do we introduce this very early? I mean, this year with our freshmen, basic presentation etiquette, very difficult, right? You'd be surprised how hard it is. So, but we're responding to that, and I think once we see a lot more of this, the problem I think often is who's going to start it, right? Is it a regulator that's going to? And now I think there was something about universities being mandated to teach entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Right? So if we can see a lot more of that,
policies.
right? Regulation bringing in, sort of forcing academia to respond to basic trends in industry, then we can start going somewhere.
All right.
Yeah.
So that's great. That's great. I need 2 questions. Okay.
So what I have to say is that since we have Ashesi University with students who are getting into the industry because of how they think, I think getting more schools like that will add to our GDP.
Oh, you
Yes,
got that.
more
GDP.
schools like
Nice.
Ashesi and African Science Academy with diverse students and students who think differently will be of great help. And also my question is, now with the GES, our statistics officer, Mr. Edmond Owusu-Ajimai, talking about the new curriculum, which they are now about to measure. Okay, if they measure, and then the statistics are not encouraging, are they going to go back to the old curriculum, which is knowledge-based and not practical, or they have something in mind to do about it? That's my question.
Thank you very much. Thank you. GS, I didn't hear, so over to you.
Thank you so much. It will definitely work. After our measurement,
Huh?
it will definitely work.
That's very optimistic. I
It will
like that.
definitely work. Yeah, thank you.
But in case it doesn't work,
It will work. It will work. Yeah.
okay. Okay, it will work. Well, that's very optimistic. Okay, so I see a hand here. Yeah.
Hi. So I'm Emma Dutton, and I happen to have worked at the University of Ghana. I still work for the last 15 years. I think there's 2 things I would like to say, and I picked up on something, Dr. Gordon, you said about who initiates things, right? I think the onus has been on academia to initiate relationships, but I don't see why Ghanaian, yes, Google, IBM, Microsoft, they're all reaching out to campuses. Where are the Ghanaian industries reaching out with curriculum, giving it free to students? I think we need to see academia. It's a pity there's no industry rep here, really, but industry has to come out and reach out to the academics. And I think it's not just, there's this big focus on students. What about lecturers? What is the curriculum? What is the program for helping the teachers to be more up to date with what's going on? Why don't industry people come and teach in the university, teach courses? I think there should be more from the industry. And then I think there's a member in the family that has not been part of it, which is the community. I think community is completely absent. You know, our universities are like little ivory towers sitting there. They don't get into the community at all. Legon, apart from, it's like some ivory, walled community. The community needs to come into how we, academics and industry. In America, I always wonder how come Silicon Valley is the way it is. And I think people are very much embedded in the community around, the Silicon Valley area, and I'm wondering how do we bring in community into this thing? Because at the end of the day, the kids go out and live in communities.
Okay.
They, you know, so I think that's a missing piece
All right.
in the marriage.
Thank you, Amma. That's quite interesting. So, industry coming to teach at academia. I am not a professor. I don't have a master's degree, so I don't qualify to teach at Legon. All right? Those are some of the things.
Yeah, you don't qualify.
I don't qualify to teach, regardless of what I know. Once I don't have a master's,
Yes, that is
you
true.
don't qualify. So, why should I even try and apply to go and teach?
But you can co-teach.
I can
You
co-teach
can co-teach.
at Ashase or at Legon. So flexibility, we ran out of time, just put that out there. So flexibility is key. So if you guys gonna be very flexible, I don't mind, I like to talk, so I can come teach, right, and show you some work. I need people to be attend meetings for me, I'll send you on my behalf.
I can't stress how important that is, because I remember in when I was doing my HR development consultancy course, we had a lady from GE come and share her experience, and it was practical, and it made me fall in love with that topic. I think it was organizational development. I got a distinction in that because of it. But like, I can't stress how important that is.
Last
because
question.
it really gives you perspective.
Sorry, can I speak to the
Oh, why not?
community
Why not?
community
Why not?
thing? So 2 weeks ago, I gave my son a challenge. 18 years old. I said, I told him complete 30 IBM badges on the IBM portal, free learning portal, in 3 weeks, and I'll give you a reward. I named the reward. He got the 30 badges in about 10 days.
Wow.
So now he knows AI, he knows blockchain, he knows design thinking. He knows, he knows a lot of things that many of his peers do not know. So community is really, really key. Parents should challenge their children.
So I'm Nicholas from Artificial Intelligence Association of Ghana. So I have a friend who does, he did his bachelor's degree in construction, right?
Okay.
But this guy is a very good web developer. He can create websites and all the stuff. But here's the case where he applies for a job, and because he doesn't have a computer science degree, he's denied the job.
You don't believe he
So
can
you
do
study,
website.
you realize that the international companies like Google and co have removed that requirement from their HR, applying for a job, right? So how is industry? So there's to HR, that's Lexi,
Industry,
right? So how is the industry evolving with these new requirements? Because now I don't need a computer science degree to know how to develop websites. So why should I be denied a job whilst I have the skill set? What are the new ways of evaluating a person's skill set to be able to employ that person in his or a relevant industry? Thank you.
So remember I was speaking about interviews and coming in and speaking about some of the skills that you have. I think it's important that industries also have tasks on the day to show that this is what you can do and prove it. So if you've got a degree in construction and you want to apply for a job in web development, then you can prove it on the day of interview. That's my thought.
Yes.
So somebody mentioned about soft skills, somebody mentioned about the outcome-based education, somebody talked about the flexible curriculum. So all are very important. So along with all these, the most important thing to get that marriage done is the collaboration between the industry and academia. Always, we should have some programs. So you said you can't enter your university and lecture. No, it should be possible.
Oh, I can come to
So
that.
yes, it should be possible.
Legon.
Always, there should be an industry-institution interaction cell. The guest lectures that you get from the industry, that is very important. It's not that always you depend on your lecturer, so he himself simulates like an industry expert and talk. It's not possible. Call the industry expertise, conduct some programs based on that, some conferences, some guest lectures, some workshops. What the outside the industry needs exactly. So what the skill set? Okay, soft skills is one aspect that we can embed in our curriculum. The way we teach will automatically make the students gain that. But the people talk about the blockchain, the AI, and all these kinds of things. Someone also rightly mentioned, so the lecturer should be trained, as well as the students also should be trained from the industry experts. It's not always the lecturer, it's not always the teacher. That interaction, once you get it, so most of the problems will be solved. And that should be reflecting in the curriculum as well. One good thing at Lancaster, finally, I would like to say is that in our computer science curriculum, at least we have a flexible module called computer science seminars, where always the students research themselves, and they have the group projects, they have final year projects. Projects anyway is common, but this computer science seminars module is one crucial module, if they really understand, is the one that makes them to explore what is happening around. See, that is where we can call some industrial experts to deliver some seminars. Sometimes it will be intensity will be less, but actually it should be high.
Thank you
So
so
we
much.
have that flexible curriculum. That's what I'm trying to say. But yesterday and today I did not speak much, but this is one opportunity where at least you mentioned about academia. I should stand up and raise and make some comments about that.
So
Thank you very
so
much.
clearly, I'm excited that at least we got this conversation to this peak. Clearly, there are ways to get this marriage to work, right? So I think what we need to do is to get to work, to actually get these things done and see how this can work out.